Okay, I think we are up and running on social
Hi,
media.
Tara.
Hey, Takara, Miss Woodridge.
Hola, hola.
Good evening, everybody on social media.
You broke up.
No, I was just saying good evening to our social media viewers.
Mm.
Um, what's up? At least talking about some hallelujah. What's up, sis? Man. So how was everybody's Resurrection Sunday, Passover weekend?
That's good.
What?
Mine was good.
I had a bunch of people talking about some happy Easter. I said that don't exist.
Right. What is that?
No,
What
so
is that pagan religion?
but the funny the funny thing is when you look at some of the stuff, it's a lot of stuff about Easter that I did not know was like the reason as to why we actually have Easter. That I just found out probably within like the last maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, Easter is more of a fertility
Right.
celebration.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that.
A pagan fertility
But it
celebration.
makes sense with the eggs, though.
With the eggs and the bunny rabbits.
Yeah, it definitely makes
Because
sense.
what do they say about married couples
Bunnies,
when they get married?
yeah, bunnies are very fertile animals, so it definitely makes sense.
Right. I'm with you, Twine. I got a sheet of questions like
Yeah,
about Easter.
yeah. Hey,
Within
you
the
know
last
what?
24 hours for me, I'm like, what?
Real
Okay.
talk, real talk. It is, it's kind of it's interesting, like I say, but it's odd how they merge or link the two holidays. You know what I'm saying, and try and make it one thing, but that's the world we live in today. Ain't no big
Yeah.
deal. I
Right.
understand, folks.
Yeah, and that's what one of the things that I really loved about being under the ministry that I grew up in is that my father he figured out real quick that a lot of the stuff that we were told from a biblical standpoint was not factual, even with just the concept.
Hold on, we got a couple of new people on. Y'all make sure y'all mute.
We didn't hear you, Antoine.
No, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying make sure everybody mute if you're not talking. We getting a little background.
Okay.
How y'all doing?
Okay. I was saying that, even with the concept of saying that Jesus died on Friday and rose on Sunday, that could not be 3 days. And Dad was always pretty adamant about explaining the timeline and when Christ had to be crucified and put in the ground versus what we think is fact.
Right.
He made sure that we knew that did not make sense. It could not be possible.
Hold on 1 second.
You're muted.
Yeah, my bad. My apologies. I was telling the little one was down here, and I had to close the refrigerator. It was beeping in the background. But so I'm glad everybody enjoyed their holiday weekend. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So we picked up pretty much towards the end of chapter 11. We kind of trailed off just last week because we wanted to, make sure we had we started fresh in the Passover instead of starting it and then trying to pick it up a little bit in the middle of the week. Um, Oh, okay. I thought I was muted for a second. So let's ask some questions. Who I got on here? Takara. Takara, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you remember how many plagues we had prior to the Egyptians being freed?
Well, look at me. I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. 7, 8, 9, 10. 10.
Yep, that's right. That's right. I would have look again. I would have been once he hit me with the gnats. I'd have been ready to go. Like, you know what, God, look, whatever this new God is, he win. Yeah, I'm done with this. Cause man,
I was in a
gnats
nail
are-
shop the other day, and it was in there. I had my mask on. I had it down. I pulled up.
that's got to be one of the most annoying bugs, or at least flies are trying. You know what I'm saying? Avoid you. Gnats don't care. They will go in those. They don't care. They'll be all in between your glasses and your eyeballs, and just be annoying. Um, so yeah, just a quick recap. The plagues that we went over so far. And the plagues were through chapters 7 through 12. Like I said, we picking up at 12 today, the Passover. But just a quick recap. Chapter 7 talked about the blood plague, basically causing the fish to die, the rivers to smell. The people, basically in Egypt were without water because they couldn't use the Nile was basically their biggest source of water, food. A lot of their resources came from the Nile. So when you turn the water into blood and all the fish died and stuff like that, it basically messed them up to where they couldn't use a lot of this stuff. And also remember that while most of these plagues were going on, the Israelites were not affected by anything that was going on. As you see, every time they had a plague going on, that hey, God made sure that He spared His people and made sure they had more than enough provision. Chapter 8 dealt with the frogs that came up from the water and completely basically covered the land. They said frogs was everywhere. And don't forget, the other thing was, so one of the things that it looked like to Pharaoh, I think that even made him more stubborn, was the fact that every time that Moses and Aaron did plague, that instantly, like right after, he had his sorcerers or wizards, you know what I'm saying, they would do the same thing until they got to a certain point, at which point they're like, oh man, hold on. They still dealing with that. They were actually affected by it. Anybody remember which plague that was? That actually that was their stopping point to where they couldn't reproduce what it was that Aaron and Moses were doing. Anybody? 5, 4, 3. It was the boils. Go ahead. Who said that?
Go ahead.
I was about to say I googled it. It was the boils.
I was gonna guess. I just thought that.
Yeah.
Like, I think the boils was.
So it was the boils. So what happened at that plague? It was like, okay, they got, they had everybody in Egypt basically. Again, this was just the Egyptians were all covered in boils and sores and this, that, and the other. But so when they went to reproduce it, it said they couldn't even attempt it basically at that point because they were suffering from the boils themselves. So, you in pain and you in agony and you dealing with boils all over your body and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think you trying to reproduce anything. And me personally, I am fortunately to never have had a boil, but I've seen a few people I know personally have them. Man, it looks agonizing. I would hate to be, covered in them. I'm talking about the people I know were literally in major pain from just one. So I could only imagine all over your body, your face, and just creases and different stuff like that of your body. You can't even put your arm down one, get up under them and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the one where they didn't. So like I said, chapter 8 was the frogs. Chapter 8 was also the Nats, chapter 8, or in Cat Williams' words, the good gnats. Chapter 8 was also the swarm of flies. So they had a whole little thing, which is funny. You got frogs, gnats, and flies. The frogs actually eat the flies and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of humorous. Chapter 9 is where we started with the livestock, to where the Egyptian livestock were dying and getting sick and stuff like that, but none of the Israel livestock were even sick. The boils, again, horrible boils break out all over everyone in Egypt. The magicians cannot respond because they are struck with boils as well. Pharaoh refuses still even to listen. Chapter 9 ended with the last plague in chapter 9 was the hailstorm, which, of course, first of all, the fact that you got hail in Egypt, period, should have had you like, hold on, bro, this is getting out of hand here. But he had the hailstorm, then he had the locust in chapter 10, the darkness in chapter 10, basically. And so for 3 days with the total dark, it said that Egypt was completely dark for 3 days. So no one could even move except for the Hebrews, who have light as far as usual. And that's odd. Look, I'd have been like, hold on, look, give me some Hebrews around my palace or something. I'd have been trying to bend the rules or something. Then chapter 11, again, it starts talking about the first the death of the firstborn, and picks up in the Passover in chapter 12. So we'll pick up there. I'm trying to think. Anybody take anything of importance, from chapter 12 before we get started? Anything you guys thought that was important that you guys wanted to highlight? Oh, hold on. My apologies. Please, my wife, she is not with us today. Mrs. Marshall, Elder Marshall, is not with us. She is having an extreme headache. She's been dealing with all day. She's not feeling too well. So be praying for her. Actually, myself also have been dealing with a headache since about noon today. And that's why I'm about to turn one of these lights off, because it's killing my eyes. But be praying for us. I want to make sure we still had our Bible study no matter what. Anybody with the Passover? Anything that you guys heard that was interesting, in your service this week that you did not know about the Passover, that, something maybe quick or brief that, you thought was interesting before we start going into it?
I didn't, well, in service this week, I didn't, they talked about the Passover, but the message that he preached was not too much focused on Jesus, but was focused on Mary.
Right.
Sort of say Mary Magdalene, and it was something that was, we've learned throughout the years of growing up in ministry and hearing how she followed him and served him, all the way to when he was crucified and buried. Yeah. And our pastor talked about how she had the demons in her, and he freed her from her demons, and how people typically had related her demons to just sexual demons. And he kind of talked about how she had multiple demons, and people forgot about that. One of them, they looked at it as if it was a sexual demon because she was unmarried or because she was a prostitute, but they didn't touch on all the other demons, right, that he freed her from. And after, she got free, she followed him and watched him do ministry and, followed him. And he talked about how back in those days, the men were the one who had the wealth and the money. And he talked about how she had to have money to serve because she financed his ministry. She funded the ministry as she followed him because she had no husband, she had no sons. And how she was the first one he revealed himself to when he came out of the tomb. Yeah. So I had knew about her walking with him and following him throughout his whole time of ministry. on his way to being crucified and buried. And when she went back to anoint him while he was in the tomb, and he wasn't there, and she was actually talking to him, having a conversation, not knowing it was Jesus. And he talked about it from a point of how most people probably would have thought Jesus would have revealed himself to his disciples, the people that he worked miracles on, and those that he actually trained in, in ministry, but he revealed himself to the person who was least likely to even be around him or be near him or close to him. And she wasn't familiar with him as far as being trained, but she was familiar with his ministry because she actually benefited from it. So he talked about that, but the thing that I didn't think of was the fact that she was able to follow him everywhere he went, and she didn't lack anything.
And think about that, like you said, that's a major thing. And I've actually been meaning to go back on there and finish watching the live you put up yesterday, because I got to watch a little bit of it, but I didn't get to finish it. But it's amazing that out of, like she was saying, everybody who followed him, everybody who followed Jesus, everybody who he healed, everybody who he delivered, and all this stuff, the person who he chose to reveal himself to was probably, if we had 10 guesses, I don't think most people's guess would have ever hit her as to who he would have chose to reveal himself to prior to that actually happening, us reading the Bible and knowing that. So yeah, that is definitely dope. If y'all are on here and y'all haven't seen that live, definitely make sure y'all stop by and check it out. And that's you guys pastor down there, right? At least who serves y'all.
Yeah, that was our pastor.
Definitely make sure y'all review that. If y'all are on Alice's page, it was definitely a great message from the little bit that I did get to listen to. It definitely brought out some interesting things. But yeah, so like I said, we went through all the plays and everything so far. So we'll pick up completing 10. And so let me ask you guys, so when we were reading this, if you notice throughout the entire first 9 plagues, it says that God caused Pharaoh's heart to be hardened. So why did that stick out to anybody else?
Yeah, it stuck out. It stuck out to me because I was like, if he caused his heart to be hardened, they knew that he was gonna be like stubborn about it anyway. So well, I was thinking that, but I just kept on reading, like, okay, well, they did not know. They didn't know that he was not gonna go along with what they was asking him for.
And he kept. Now remember, before all of this went down, God had already revealed to Moses that this stuff was going to happen. He literally said before Moses ever went back and met up with Aaron, he had already said that he was going to deliver him, and that Pharaoh was going to be hard, his heart was going to be hard, and all this stuff. And so it was like he basically gave them the map as to what was going to happen before it actually happened. So it was very interesting to me to see, even knowing that. So I tell you what's going to happen, you know what I'm saying? And God talking to Moses, everything is happening exactly like he said, it's step by step by step. And even still, as it's happening, Moses comes back and questions God, like, hold on, bro. Like, I know you said we were supposed to befriend these people, but these people heated at me right now. What's going on? Why did you send me back here? And so it's like, didn't you see everything else is going exactly how I said it? Why are you questioning this now? But that's how we are. I feel like a lot of times it's like we can literally have a million things. We can literally have prophecy after prophecy after prophecy fulfilled in our lives. And then the instant something again looks, not actually has gone wrong, not actually has gone astray, but just looks like it might not happen like we think it's supposed to, or like God said it was going to happen. And as soon as we do, we looking like, hold on, God, this ain't right. We want to question the man writing the story. I thought that was real interesting. But so again, we're gonna focus on we're gonna jump right into this Passover. Does anybody know? So in the Passover, basically the Passover, when you look at it, I'm reading and it was saying that certain holidays were actually instituted by God Himself. And there are certain things that you know, you as you reading this, you have to make sure you pay attention to. One of the things was God started the year at the Passover.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of, and like I said, coming up through some of this stuff, you read it. And now, does anybody know what month that was when this was started?
Go ahead now.
No, you go ahead, Takara.
I was just rereading it right before Bible study started. And I don't know why March was in my head. I don't know why, but I'm like, I don't know why though. But March, that's the month that was in my head. But that's why I say March. So I was looking for it.
That's right. It's March, March through April, was the month when they started technically the Passover, which He instructed them at that point after starting the Passover to make that their official new year. Does anybody know why that was? I'm sure Miss Woodridge has the answer to that part.
I don't know quite why it was. I'm guessing now, but that was one of my questions was why do they say the New Year started in January again if the New Year actually started in March? But I was reading up on it, and I don't know if it has something to do like with the seasons, like spring with new, flowers, blossoming. It's like all things are new. Like, people start the planting, gardening and stuff. Right. So, I'm putting two and two together. Like, I think this is why, and I think.
So you're actually partly right. So in my reading, in my study, it says the Hebrew calendar actually followed the cycle of the moon, which is why its months started in the middle of the month. It didn't even start at the beginning of the month. It started in the middle of March. And it was completely different from our modern calendar. And one of the reasons that was because, of course, crops are normally in that area of the where they were at that time. The crops were actually planted in like the November, December time frame, and they were actually harvested in March and April. So this is like the new, like you said, like the spring months. And don't think of it really as like our current weather pattern. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it was a little different because of where they're actually located at that time.
And interestingly enough, throughout life period, I always have asked, like, why does the new year start in the dead of the season? Like when our new year start, everything is dead. It's death. Everything has died and everything is going to be dormant for quite some time. So I have always wondered, like, why doesn't the new year start in spring? Because it would seem more logical, because that's when life just starts to blossom for everything.
Right. Now,
even people who have been in their house and depressed from November through March, they start to come alive the minute that the sun is consistently out and the temperature starts to warm up. So I've always wondered that, like, why don't we start the new year in spring?
Right. So I want to challenge everybody to then let's look and actually see during that time what was the weather like in that area, because I'm thinking, again, even for us in our seasons, the planting and stuff like that normally has to start in the beginning, early parts of spring, for it to actually take root and stuff like that. So I still think even the November or December time frame would have probably been like spring type temperature for them. Of course, we're in Chicago, so they don't get ridiculous cold anywhere near what it is that we actually experience over here. But you know, their spring actually may have actually started in that November, August time. I mean November, December time frame. But we're actually just revealing the full harvest, you know, or the first fruits at that time, and different things of that nature actually being produced and budded to a point where it was now ready to be eaten and stuff like that for consumption and harvesting. You got something, Miss Woodridge? Like you was going to say something? No, okay.
I was just gonna say that I think even now in current time, like over in Israel, because their months are not named as ours are, like March, April, May. So April is called the month of Nisan,
Right.
And or the of Nisan, which is also translated into Aviv or spring.
Right. And
so I think they still kind of
observe the Hebrew,
to that traditional calendar versus our calendar. Now, if they hear they use our calendar,
right.
but I think there they still call it Nisan.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that, because I'm looking at it, and it's actually got, like, they have 12 different, completely different names for the months that they have over there. I'm not even finna attempt to pronounce half of these and butcher them terribly, because I know that's exactly what would happen. But like I said, they have 12 different names, and for each one of the months, each one of them cross over 2 different months for us. All of them start in the middle of the month and continue into the next month. But like I say, so it talks about here in chapter 12, 1 through 3. And I'm just going over some of the stuff we got that's highlighted. It says certain holidays were instituted by God. Passover was a holiday designed to celebrate Israel's deliverance from Egypt and remind the people of what God had done. Holidays can be important today too, as an annual reminder of what God has done for us. Develop traditions in your family to highlight the biblical meanings of Christian holidays that serve as a reminder to the older people and younger people learning experiences. You know what I'm saying? And so that's actually a very good idea. You know, to really, you got something, Ms. Woodridge?
Yeah, but finish what you're gonna say.
No, I was just gonna say that's actually a really good idea, how to, one, actually help your children understand what holidays mean, and also help them to remember them, you know, without seeing it on TV or social media. Because of course, when they see them on TV and social media, it ain't Easter. It ain't the Passover it's talking about. It's talking about Easter. You know, it's talking about something completely different. And so at some point, and I understand some people still, I won't say some Christians still observe just the tradition, or trying to have fun with the children and stuff like that. But you still want to make sure, even if that's something that you practice, that you definitely give them the real meaning of what it is that they're doing. And as they grow and develop, make sure you're giving them information as to what the actual difference is between the two. Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
What I was going to say is, actually, and this is something that a lot of like Americans or maybe other people don't really know, that there were 2 holidays or 2 Jewish feast days or celebration days that came out of the Passover. Because the other thing that they celebrate along with the Passover is the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that a little bit too.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, you can go ahead. Touch on it.
And the Feast of Unleavened Bread is where you get this whole tradition of, and we don't do it, but if you live around a Jewish community, there's like during this time they can't even have leaven in their house. So anything that like yeast or anything like that would cause the bread to rise, they get all of that out of their so that nobody
accidentally eats it.
disturbs or accidentally eat anything with leaven in it during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the Passover is a feast day for the Jews, as well as the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and they both kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, and it said the Feast of Unleavened Bread lasted for 7 days, and like you said, even in that time frame, not only were they not allowed to eat it, they had to get rid of everything in their household that, excuse me, everything in their household that had leaven in it, because basically it said that if you ate something with leavened bread and you were disconnected. Hold on 1 second, I'm trying to resubmit somebody. Okay, I think I got it. Y'all bear with me. My wife normally fool with this stuff. I don't know how to do half of this stuff, but Gloria, you back? Okay.
I'm back. I'm sorry. My mother interrupted me.
No problem. I just wanted to make sure I was doing it right. But yeah, like you were saying, the Feast of Unleavened Bread is basically in the same month that actually takes place, and also the first fruits, which we'll again talk about a little later as we go on and dive into the Bible a little later. It then highlights chapter 12, 3 through 27, basically just a little general. It says, for the Israelites to be spared from the plague of death, a lamb was with no defects. Basically, it was basically the best lamb that they had to be sacrificed, and the blood to be put on the door frame of each home. It actually gave them like a little bonus, like if they had small families and stuff like that, that they could actually share it between two different households. Does anybody remember how the lamb had to be prepared?
Yeah, it says that it had to be, split and diced. I'm like, it just had to be gutted, and like they couldn't eat any of the insides. Certain parts they could get, and certain parts they could not eat.
Right.
I guess more like the intestines and stuff they could not eat. So, like the gizzards and all that other stuff, hearts and all that stuff they could not eat. But everything else was like free game for them to eat.
Right.
And they had to eat it all that night. They could not save any for the next day. They had to eat it all that night.
They had to consume the entire thing, and it had to be roasted. It could not be boiled or anything else. It had to be prepared, even cooked a certain way, and served a certain way when they ate it. So yeah, definitely. This is something, like I said, a lot of us haven't really taken the time to really go through and actually look and really see all the different things. But so in this, like I said, this is our final plague, where he's killed all the, basically, this was basically a part of you sacrificing innocent blood, so your house didn't have the death angel visit your house, because as they were instructed, once they killed him and did all the, the preparation and the eating and everything, they had to take that blood and smear it across the lintel, the top of the doorpost and the sides of the door, to make sure that the death angel would pass over their houses when the last plague was to come over Egypt that night. So here we said it's highlighted chapter 12, 6 through 11. It says the festival of the Passover was to be an annual holiday to honor the night when the Lord passed over the homes of the Israelites. The Hebrews followed God's instructions by placing the blood of the lamb on the doorframe of their homes the night of the firstborn. That night, the firstborn son of every family that did not have the blood on the doorframe was killed. The family, so basically, and this wasn't just people. The firstborn of the herds, the cattle, like everything they owned that was living, breathing things, the firstborn was actually taken or killed, because this was basically the sign or the last plague that, actually wound up setting the Israelites or the Hebrews free. Shout out to blood. Passover feast. Now, take special notice of this, chapter 11. It says that not only did they eat the Passover lamb in a certain way, but they were dressed in a certain way. And so this was a sign of faith for them. They were dressed in a certain way, meaning that they were dressed basically to exit. They were dressed to leave Egypt for their final time. It said that they had their shoes on and different things of that nature, basically as a show of faith, that, hey, even though they weren't free yet, they were preparing themselves to be, for God had said, he would lead them out of Egypt. The preparation was an act of faith, preparing ourselves to the fulfillment of God's promises. However unlikely they may seem, demonstrates our faith. And so that's important, because it teaches us, even in that situation, the reality of it is, if you look at it, they had every reason to ignore everything Moses was saying at this point. Not only had they had not been freed at this point, there were 9 different other examples of him telling them, oh, we're going to be free. Y'all going to be free. Y'all going to be free. And not only when they told them they would be free, half the times he told them this, not only were they not free, their workload was magnified, their pain was increased, and they were treated harsher than they were before. So yeah, I definitely think that's something that is very important to make sure you highlight and take notes of, especially when teaching your children and stuff like that. One other thing I wanted to highlight was, it says, so think about the 10 plagues, and when you think about the 10 plagues, think about the fact that Egypt actually had, if you even now to this day, the Egyptians have tons of gods for different stuff, gods of different, like we were talking about, even with the pagan traditions, fertility for this and for that, sun gods, all type of things and all type of manner of gods that they have over in Jesus and in the Egyptians. If you actually have the Bible study guide that we got, and you've been following it along, one of the things I thought that was important, it says I think I might have to admit. Nope. Okay. It says it says our God is so creative in his mockery. In each one of the plagues that he placed on Pharaoh and the Egyptians, it was an attack upon one of their gods. It was as if he was saying, I am God, the Almighty. See, I have power over every one of your gods. And so I'm sure that had to be something that, as an Egyptian, if you're an Egyptian and you believe in this God and these traditions that y'all have, and every time you thinking, okay, well, our God gonna deliver us, or the God is gonna do this, the God is gonna do that, and you got some random God that you just heard of out of the blue, you've never heard anything about this God, and it's causing all this havoc and chaos, in your land right now. So I thought that was real important to note. And I highlighted that as well. Okay. So, all right. One of the other things. So we talking more about the Passover. Chapters 12, 29 through 30 says, every firstborn son of the Egyptians died, but the Israelite children were spared because the blood of the lamb had been placed over the doorstep. So begins the story of redemption, the central theme of the Bible. Redemption means buying back or saving from captivity by paying a ransom One way to buy back a slave was to offer an equivalent or superior slave in exchange. That is why God chose to buy us back. When He chose to buy us back, rather, that He offered His Son in exchange for us. Mm. You got something, Ms. Woodridge?
No, my hand has been up for a while.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I was looking. I'm like, I hear something beeping, but I couldn't tell where it was at.
Yeah, but I was. This is just going back because that when you ask like, is anything that like stood out with the whole preparation of the lamb and different things like that. That was one of the things that stood out to me. That not only did the people prepare the lamb, have to prepare it in a specific way, but even before they sat down to eat it, that they had to also prepare themselves, because he said that, and then they had to eat the Passover in haste, like eat it because we about to go.
Yeah, it was
amazing how, and maybe they didn't see it, and I'm sure they didn't. That they didn't see it, how God had this whole preparation plan for you to exit. You know, let's eat and get out of here. You know, we got somewhere to go. Y'all got somewhere to go. So go ahead, prepare y'all lamb, and then eat it and get ready. Be already ready with your shoes on, your loins girded, you know, your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste because we about to be let go. Y'all about to get out of here. So that was one of the things that stood out to me, is that even before the Passover was even prepared and eaten, they were already prepared to exit.
And that was like you said, that was all a part of the tradition of the Passover. It wasn't just you know, the preparation of them and their posture was just as important as the preparation of the animal and the feast. And like you said, they had to eat it with haste. One of the other things I'm looking at, you know, it highlights that in the Old Testament, because some people hear the Passover and instantly think of Jesus. But before Jesus, this was the accepted symbolic offering. It says in the Old Testament. Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
Oh no, you finish and do it, because I had a maybe question, kind of comment.
Go ahead.
And my comment was, I wonder. So the question part of it is, I wonder if that's why they couldn't put leaven. It was like the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because when you leaven bread, like when you put yeast in the bread, you gotta watch it rise. You gotta make sure it rises to a certain level. You gotta do all this stuff to it. So when you add yeast to bread, it's a whole different process.
Right.
But unleavened bread with no least is just like, let's throw some flour and some eggs together in the pan, cook the bread, eat it. You know, like it's like what they used to say, call it in the back, hot water cornbread.
Right. I still like hot water
cornbread. It's so simple and to the point. Let's put some flour and some hot water in it, and maybe an egg or whatever, and throw it in the pan and cook it. Versus when you cook cornbread or corn muffins or biscuits, it's a whole different process.
So are you asking why the fact that they couldn't eat the unleavened bread, was that because of the fact that it took too much time and effort into doing it?
Yeah, I'm thinking it is just my thought that maybe that was the reason why the bread had to be unleavened, because they were in haste of preparation for making whatever they had to do. They had to make it in haste. They didn't have time to sit around and wait for no bread to rise and all this kind of stuff, which is the normal process of making bread.
I'm gonna look into that. Matter of fact, I want all us to look into that. That's an interesting question. What was I at? So it says in the Old Testament, God accepted symbolic offerings. Jesus had not been sacrificed Jesus had not yet been sacrificed, so God accepted the life of the animal in the place of the sinner. When Jesus came, he substituted his perfect life for our sinful lives, taking the penalty of sin that we deserve. Thus, he redeemed us from our power of sin, from the power of sin, and restored us to God. Jesus' sacrifice was the reality that animal sacrifices had been pointing towards. So, ever since Jesus' death and the resurrection, there has no longer been any need for the sacrifice of animal. So that's why we changed and went away from that, because of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ in place of the original sacrifice, the sacrifice of the Passover lamb. So that's another reason why we honor it in the way that we do now, compared to what we're reading in Exodus at this current time.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in my commentary, it talks about the significance of each plague, and it shared that like with each plague, it's like God was attacking the Egyptian gods.
Yeah,
so he was proving his faithfulness or his lordship over, basically, I'm gonna say these demons, because that's what they were. They were demons, and so he was letting them know that these gods that you're serving has no power over me, and I am God, and I'm gonna prove myself strong. And it's like almost like a bully. Like, I'm gonna put you in your place.
Right.
You are not above me. You're beneath me. You're gonna always be beneath me. But because the Egyptians served them, the Egyptians worshipped them, and they thought that their gods was more powerful than God. He had to show the Egyptians. Basically, he had to show Pharaoh, like, I am God. I am the living God. I am the true God. So with each plague that happened, it was really a hit against the gods that they were serving.
I think that may have happened when you went off for a second, but I was telling them the same thing, and that I don't know if you have the Bible study. I don't know if this is, I don't want to call it a notebook, but like the workbook that we have. It highlighted that, basically that, like you said, every one of the plagues that he had was basically like making mockery of, oh, y'all thought these gods were, all this or whatever. And basically, like you said, basically putting them in their place. And the reality of it is, if you really think back on it and read, the Egyptians basically felt like they were superior to the Hebrews anyway. Even when Jacob and his family and everybody came over, through Joseph, basically even when, matter of fact, when he invited his brothers over, remember, he had to eat separately from them because of the traditions of the Egyptians. They wouldn't eat, not even share a table with the Hebrews. So his brothers were at one table and he was at a completely different table, when they were eating their meal. And that was just, how they, oh my, I forgot to record the Zoom. Yeah, I'm in trouble.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, so but yeah, so he actually forgot. I mean, he had actually basically in this example, he's showing, like I said, the Egyptians, if you look at it, I honestly can't even tell you how many different gods the Egyptians have, but they have a large number of gods. And if you look at these plagues that he's hitting the Egyptians with in this time, it's like, okay, well, y'all thought y'all had power. Y'all thought y'all actually had control over this stuff. Let me show y'all exactly who God is. You know what I'm saying? Because if you remember, Pharaoh actually asked them, who is this God that you have, or who is this God that I shall obey him? And you know what I'm saying? He's constantly, actually repeatedly asked them that throughout different stuff like that. So he would tell them, okay, well, I'll let y'all go do y'all celebration, and then turn around and double back around and change his mind. So anything else you guys think of, or that you guys want to go over about the Passover before we move ahead? Wow. So this, I just want to highlight this one last thing.
Did you talk about the significance with the Passover and Jesus? Did we go over that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
no, you good. So and I was just kind of going over the difference between basically just summing it up. Basically, the difference was at that point in time, like I said, Jesus had yet to actually come here on earth and pass and die and give his life, for us and be resurrected and basically doing away with that original tradition. So at this point in time in the Bible that we're going through, that's why we have the specification of the actual lamb. I mean, the actual lamb being sacrificed and going over the doorpost, or the blood going over the doorpost to keep the death angel from being, from killing or coming in and killing the firstborn of the Hebrews. So, and the thing is, understand, just because they were Hebrews, I'm sure just like any other religion or belief, there were people, I'm sure, that was like, okay, well, I'm not really believing what it is that, this dude talking about. He didn't sent us off 9 other times already and this, that, and the other. So if that was the case and they didn't put that blood over the doorpost, they actually experienced that same death of the firstborn throughout their house and throughout their livestock and everything in that aspect. So, all right, we're going to move forward talking about the Exodus. So now one of the things to note I thought was actually interesting of the Exodus, it says the total number of people leaving Egypt may have been as high as 2 million through, you know what I'm saying? They say the estimates vary, but you're talking about 2 million free slave labor that you ain't got to pay. Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I have been like, it's been a question that I have been wanting to ask for ever since we talked about Joseph and when Jacob and like how, like literally 70 people.
But think about it.
When they came to Egypt, when Jacob came to Egypt, it was 70 people.
Well, no. So it was, but it wasn't. It was 70 of his relatives specifically. But think about, I'm sure even of his relatives, they had, servants. Remember, because Jacob's father, Jacob actually had tons of servants and stuff like that in addition. So on top of the 70 actual relatives, you talk about their servants, the servants' families and all that stuff. So all of them would have been a part of that Hebrew tribe that originally entered into Egypt. 2 million people. That's a huge hit on anybody's economy to lose 2 million people just in general, but to lose 2 million people that were actually your workforce. And on top of that, everybody who you actually have left, think about it. Most of these Egyptians, probably after having free slaves and slave labor for all this time, they probably don't even know how to do the work that the Egyptians were, that the Hebrews were actually doing at that point. Because you're talking about for 400 years, we've not passed these traditions down. We've not taught our children. We've not had to do this work. We've not had to do anything remotely like this in that 400-year time span. So for over 400 years, that 70, like you say, 70 plus whatever addition of family and not family, but servants has multiplied from that up to 2 million people that are now leaving and basically taking the workforce out of Egypt. God Almighty work. I decided to leave Egypt with them. Now, and remember this, another thing to take note of, when they left, they didn't just leave. It actually said that they left, and when they left, they actually left with Egyptian gold, fine fabrics and different things like that, because God had instructed them before. I want to say, I forget which exact plague it was, but before one of the plagues, he actually instructed them to go get stuff from the Egyptians, and they said the Egyptians were freely giving them the stuff. All right, so that is so basically that is our original Passover. It's not the Passover that we actually discussed and talk about for today, but this is actually where the Passover was actually originated. And you would be shocked as to how many people actually do not know that there were two Passovers, or that the original Passover actually had nothing to do with Jesus, because Jesus hadn't been here yet. And so Jesus was, as the Bible explains, just the perfect sacrifice. So when he got here and he sacrificed himself and was resurrected, that's why we celebrate that Passover, because that Passover is the Passover where his perfect life that he had lived basically redeemed us back to the Father and gave us back access to God at that point. So moving along, like I said, now we're in chapter 13. Chapter 13, one of the highlights are 13, chapter 2. And it talks about consecrate, means to basically what consecrate means to sacrifice something or to set something apart as being as belonging to God. The dedication practice described in chapter 13, 11 through 16 was to redeem people of their deliverance through God. So, and a lot of this is going over the actual exodus of them leaving out of Egypt and going into what is the wilderness. One of the other highlights that I thought was interesting, it talks about basically it being interesting that Moses actually, remember, spent 40 years in the wilderness before he actually came back to Egypt. And that same wilderness I guess that's kind of jumping ahead, but that same wilderness that he spent his original 40 years in, is he also spent that 40 years later on, leading the people in the way of getting them to the land of milk and honey. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That was something that I actually didn't realize before rereading this and going through it. Chapter 13, verses 6 through 9. It says, the festival of unleavened bread, which began with the Passover and lasted 7 days, marked the Hebrews as a unique people, as though they were branded on their hands and foreheads. What do you do that marks you as a follower of God? Anybody you could think of, something that you do that I guess denotes and shows an outward expression, or something that shows that you're a believer or a follower of God? Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
Well, for me personally, I try to live my life according to God's standards, if nothing else, according to the 10 Commandments,
Right,
which were, God's laws that he put before us, starting with the Hebrews. I try to at least follow the tenets of the 10 Commandments. And I also try to make sure that when I, talk to people, that they see God in me, at least, to some degree. Like I try to tell them about God and try to explain to them the reasons why we should try to live a certain way and the ramifications when we don't.
that's good. Anybody else?
What was the
For
question?
me,
So
Okay, go ahead.
the question
For me,
was,
you know, I try to live right. I'm not gonna say I get it right every time because I don't. I fail all the time. And I just feel this past week when I went away and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get in the word, I'm gonna spend time. I don't gotta go to work, it's just me and God, and none of that happened. Like literally, it was just really distraction after distraction after distraction. But for me, it's really just like I try to do things. I guess my motto is like, I want to be able to please God in everything that I do. Am I gonna mess up? Yeah. Am I gonna get things wrong? Yeah. But I do try to do things that would please Him. You know, like Ms. Moore said, like to live your life in a way that is approving, you know, to God, you know, but not condemning yourself when you do mess up, but knowing that, you know, because I think for me, it's like, even when I mess up, I like my favorite scripture in the Bible is like, in the Bible is like, nothing should separate me from God. Like nothing, like no matter what I do, no matter what I go through, no matter how imperfect I am, because I am imperfect, you know, like that still will not separate me from God's love. Like, you know, so my whole thing is like, I just want to please you. And if I'm doing something that's not pleasing to God, you know, I ask Him, like, Father, was that pleasing to you? Like, I try to develop a relationship. Like, I have a relationship with my mom. I'm trying to develop that same type of relationship with God, like where I would hear Him speak and I would be quickly, not slow obedience, but quick obedience to do what He's asking me to do. You know, but I ain't made it that yet.
It's a slow walk. It's a slow walk. And the thing is, you said something important. I think what people don't realize, I feel like a lot of times we condemn ourselves more than God actually does. And what I mean by that is sometimes we get so focused on, oh my God, I did this or I did that. I didn't act right here. I didn't act right there. I let God down with this. And I feel like sometimes, or most times, God is more focused on the fact that we didn't stay there more than the fact that, okay, we actually slipped up. Because the truth of the matter is some people slip up and they never make it back from that point. Some people slip up and are instantly ready to give up. But one of the beautiful things about, you know, us, God, is He gives us grace and mercy. And the truth of it is, without grace and mercy, when none of us be in a position to say we are remotely a Christian at all. Takara, anything?
I didn't know the question at first, but just listening to Gloria response, I'm like, every day now, my prayer became, God, order my steps, like, because I just want to. It's not that I wasn't doing right in the beginning, but he was pretty much drowned out. I'm gonna just say I've always been into church, but I just this time I'm more focused on Him. Like I not only take Bible study on Mondays, but I take it on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So I'm like putting more of my time into getting the word more so.
Right.
And I have been like praying for, you know, like for wisdom. Just how can I put this? Like older people having like reaching out to me and just throwing wisdom at me, just giving me wisdom, and it's been helping me so much, especially in the way that I used to respond. Like I used to be quick to respond to things like when I'm mad, and now I go to the Bible or I sign up for these different plans on the YouVersion app, and I will go along with those plans. And and like you say, it's a process, because I used to, not saying I didn't pray. Well, I prayed more, but like when I would get up in the morning, I wouldn't be like, thank you, thank you God for giving me another day.
Right.
I will forget. I just get up and start doing stuff, and then in the middle of the day, I'm like, oh yeah, thank you God for giving me another day. But now it's I'm before I step, sit up and open my, well, not open my eyes, but sit up and step foot out the bed. I say my prayer, and then I got it now where it is my plans is set for 9:00. So I would do my plan, my YouVersion plan, and it's just a process. I'm learning to discipline my focus.
But that's good though, because like you said, really the truth of the matter is, and I know you said it's not like, I'm deliberately doing this or doing that. against God, but the truth of the matter is we all have stuff that, you know, we could be, even if we're not doing what most people would consider sin. You know what I'm saying? There's stuff that we could focus on or give God, like you said, actual direct intentional, you know, efforts, you know, to increase our relationship with God. Is just like anybody, a relationship with anybody. If the more effort you put into it, the more you get out of it. The more effort you give towards it, the more energy you put into it, you know, the more you begin to see the results and the benefits of it. For instance, for myself, so one of the things, okay, with me, my wife and I, we're both elders. One of the things with us coming up, I didn't really honestly see a lot of men, I guess, really like leading their family in prayer in their private home. You know what I'm saying? I was used to seeing that from a mother's perspective and stuff like that. And so my wife would do that a lot with the children, even sometimes with or without me, you know, if I was gone or whatever the case may be, because I used to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. Fortunately, thank God, you know what, I can't even really say thank God, because I kind of enjoy working at 5 o'clock in the morning because I was off early. But that was one of the things my wife did. You know what I'm saying? She started in our household. And I didn't think anything of it, but one of the at some point she expressed to me, she was like, you know, you don't pray as much. You pray, you know, which, you know, but most of the time you pray is at church, or you in your car, you saying you know, you covering us and praying different stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying, it's better if, you know, the kids see you pray. I need you to pray for me, and stuff like that. And so what we have started doing every morning, I leave probably 6 o'clock in the morning. So this is the inconvenience for them sometimes. But like right before I leave the door, I try to say, you know, wake everybody up. Hey, everybody, get up. Come on, we're going to do a prayer, you know, and just to give God some type of time together as a group. But not only that, I still do my worship in my car. I still, you know, worship, you know, in the house sometimes with the music and stuff like that. And so I think it's just important to, like I said, with any relationship, you give time to it, you give intentional effort to it. And so one of the things I did, I wrote a prayer out that I was praying. It's different than a prayer I say with with the wife and children, but there's a prayer that I confess over my family, my household every day. I taped one of them to the mirror in my bathroom. I copied it. I keep a copy in my wallet. I keep a copy in my car. So I make sure that I don't go a day. You know, I try to make sure I say that prayer at least once a day, and just, you know, covering our family aside from the already, you know, the prayer that we do in the morning, because I feel like the prayer we do in the morning has to be kind of, you know, rushed a little, not really rushed, but, you know, the key, I'm trying to be a little mindful of the kids, you know what I'm saying, having not to get up super early. It's already 6 o'clock in the morning. But, you know, like I said, I'm still just believing that it's doing something, and it's something that we've been doing, honestly, probably, I don't know. I can't really think of when we started it, but I know it's been at least a couple of months. I want to say that, you know what I'm saying, my wife expressed to me, and she was like, you know, sometimes I just, you know, I have to be strong a lot out in the street and stuff like that. I just want you to, you know, cover us in prayer and stuff like that. And like I say, because it was something that I hadn't grown up seeing, I've never seen my father pray, ever. You know what I'm saying? So I seen my grandfather pray, but most of the time I seen him pray, it was in church, or it was in the congregation. It was him praying for somebody specifically, or taking somebody through deliverance or something like that. So, you know, it never really dawned upon me like, okay, well, hold on, this is something you should be adding to everything else you're doing. Not saying that I'm already doing a lot of something like that, but like, this is helpful. It makes sense. You're the head of your household. You're a male. You're a leader. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, the prayer should, you know, your wife is praying, but it should definitely, you know, you should be praying with her as much as possible. So, and I'm sure some days she kind of hated, because even though she has to be up at a certain time, You know, sometimes she's still resting and I'm having to wake her up a little bit early, like, hey, we're gonna do prayer. You need to come on, get up, you know, and stuff like that. But it's a sacrifice. But I just believe in when we make sacrifices to keep and adhere to God's word, you know what I'm saying, the benefits and stuff like that will come. And so that's one of my, I guess, one of my outward things I would say that I do. And I guess one of the other outward things that I do that people, I guess, acknowledge without me actually saying anything. So I don't curse. So people, you know, will hear when I'm explaining something or I'm saying different stuff like that, people will be like, are you a Christian or a pastor or something like that, or this, that, and the other? Because I noticed like you give real effort or work real hard. Even if you saying a story or you explaining what somebody else said, you say they said the B word. And I feel like I sound like a little kid when I'm saying it, but that's just, you know, that's just how I am. And so it's kind of funny, but you know what I'm saying? Like I say, people notice it. Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
I like what, you know, you guys, because everybody is kind of on the same track with the only way you can have a fulfilled or great relationship, any kind of relationship. I don't care even if it's just a friend or your husband or your spouse, your work relationship. The only way you can do that is you have to spend quality time. You have to give it a lot of effort and make sure that you are nurturing it. And for most people, when it comes to God, it's like the last thing that they think that they need to nurture. Because and I've heard this so many times. I've been in church all my life almost. So I've heard this so many times. God knows my heart. Yes, God knows your heart. He absolutely does. And he knows when you're really intentionally putting effort toward building a relationship towards him. And he knows when you're just coming to him just because you need something.
That's true.
He knows when you're just in a place where he is the only one that you know to call on. Right. So he does know your heart. So he absolutely knows when your efforts are intentional, or you know, like we do with our husbands, wives, or kids, where you come to them with that little special kind of prayer or conversation because you need something. So, you know, I try to make an intentional effort to not just go to God when I need something, but I'm going to him every day. Even if I have to like be in a rush and be like, God, hey, you know, I am on my way out the door. I got to run. I woke up late, blah, blah, blah. But in my car, let me say something to you. Even if I just got to put on a worship song, right? And worship right. God for the duration of that song. Like, the word of God is the only way you can get to know God on a personal level. You can't just know God just by going to church.
Nah, and the sad part is
that church.
That's what a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of Christians, a lot of people who say they are believers, they only know God through what somebody else has told them.
Right.
They do not know.
I know God because I go to church on Sunday. I love God because I go to church on Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. No, you know God through somebody else. You need to know him.
I'm gonna say I believe more than 50% of Christians probably only know God through the voice and the interpretation of somebody else. When the Bible tells us to work out our own soul salvation, and like Ms. Woodridge was saying, you know, we use that excuse, God knows my heart, and you know what I'm saying, we use it for so much stuff, and I feel like, to be honest, we use it maliciously, because the truth of the matter is, you know, like you say, yeah, God does know your heart. You cannot fool God. So one of the things I tell people all the time, just practice having normal, like people feel like prayer is only I got a shondo and give 36 Hail Marys and amens and all this other stuff. When the truth of the matter is, God is just like, I just want you to talk to me. I just want you to have a personal relationship with me. And I don't understand why we don't understand that, because if you look all throughout the Bible, when the people are talking to God and he's talking to the people, for the most part, they're having conversations just like we're having right now. It's very seldom, like you say, you'll see the Lord's Prayer, you'll see specific stuff that's a specific ceremony or specific done a specific way. But for the most part, even when they're entertaining angels, when they're entertaining God, when they're entertaining most of this stuff, the conversation is talking just like you and I are talking right now. And that's really, I feel like, what God really wants and expects from us. Just have a natural relationship with him. So one of the things I do, like I said, aside from our morning prayer that we've started over the last few months or whatever it's been, I have always, I get up when in my morning, like my phone has an alarm. It says prayer time. So I start off, praying. And when I get in my car, my ride, my 45-minute hour ride to work, I'm intentional about, making that a place of worship. I'm trying to start off my day with God instead of starting off my day, with the news and ESPN and all this other stuff that I had before that were distractions or rap music or whatever the case may be. And so for the most part, even my wife, when she calls, or something like that, she normally only calls me if there's something important before I get to work. And she'll call me, if she needs to briefly. But other than that, that's my time of worship. That's my time. And I feel like it keeps me in a better place when I start my day off with God versus just trying to fit him in wherever I can. And so sometimes, honestly, that requires me to get up a little earlier. That requires me to sacrifice a little stuff that I may not want. I might want to hold on to that pillow a little longer, but I've committed to that, and I'm pretty good. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm pretty good at adhering to that and making sure that I give God some justifiable, communication with him, at least on a daily basis. I think probably the only time I would say that my communication doesn't start with him before it starts with me through somebody else is on a Sunday when I'm at a service or something like that. That's probably the only time we don't do our normal routine, because we know we're going into service for that experience and that worship and every encounter with God. But we are getting ready to wrap up. I appreciate you all going through the Passover with me. Anything anybody want to highlight, or anybody got anything they want to talk about? Hey, Gwen, how you doing? Talk about before we leave, before we get ready to wrap up, because I see we've been on for a little bit.
I was just going to say the last little remarks you made. That was good. I honestly, I wasn't taught how to pray. My grandmother, we grew up in church, but they didn't ever teach. We didn't do, stuff like half prayer and this is how you talk to God. Because for a long time, I wouldn't pray because I thought it was a certain way you had to talk to him. So I'm like, I don't know how to pray.
Can I be? I'm gonna be honest. Let me be honest with you. Most people ain't taught how to pray, because again, like I said, most people's beliefs of what prayer is basically mimicking the person who get up and pray at the beginning of a church service or at the conclusion of a church service or something like that. Most people aren't truly taught how to pray. But like I said, the reality of it is prayer is not what probably 50% of people believe it is. You do have intentional prayers. You do have, like I said, the Lord's Prayer and different stuff like that. But the reality of it is, when we have a relationship and we have communication with God on a regular basis, that's what prayer is. That's what God is seeking, that relationship. Because if you pray for 2 minutes a day,
let's
Takara, go ahead and finish up, and then Gloria, you go ahead.
Okay.
I was about to say, I'm noticing now that with the relationship that gaining with him. It's not a certain way. I done start joining 4 a.m. prayer and not just getting on it virtually, like pointing to the building. And I'm like, I used to always say, I'm not getting up this early. I'm tired, but I found myself, like I set my alarm, I'd be excited to go. And when I leave, I'd be energized, like I'd be up. Like I done had some coffee or a Red Bull or something. I'm like, man, I can't wait for the next one. I went, 2 weeks ago? No, this last Tuesday. And it makes me feel good. Like you said, it just feels good. It makes me want to pray more and,
it's a difference. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely a difference. Go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's so different because, like, growing up, I was never taught how to pray. I couldn't do the yelling and the screaming, because I grew up in a Baptist church, and I was just so turned off. I look like, why they gotta scream so much? Like really, to me, I just, as a kid, you were looking like, okay, come on, like we gotta do all this screaming. And so when I did get introduced to prayer, it was so different. Like I didn't know anything about speaking in tongues. I didn't know anything about, it's like I was just, I don't want to say ignorant of it, but I just didn't know. Because, ignorant just means you just don't know.
Right.
So I really hate the word ignorant because it got a bad connotation to it. So I was just really unknowledgeable about it. But now it's like when I pray, because I pray journal. So when I write, it's like, I feel so much better because to me, when you pray out loud, you worry about other people, whatever. It's like, oh man, forget it. So I pray journal. In my personal time, I have my journal. I sit down and I pray. I write out my prayers to God. And I sit and I wait for him to respond back to me. And I write that down, what he responded back to me. And to me, everybody does it differently. Some people may pray verbally. I journal my prayer. Some people may sing their prayer. So, and that was one thing that I was taught at the other church I was going to, that everybody does things differently, and how you may pray may not be how someone else may pray,
right.
But then when we do come corporately together, I do submit myself to how my pastor wants us to pray because we are corporately praying,
right.
For each other. But in my personal time, I had to really break that mold for myself because I found myself getting bored in prayer. Right. I'm like, I'm just bored and I'm just sitting here, and so I found what works best for me, and he responds to me that way. So
let me offer some advice to you all that was recently given to me actually. So like I said, I have a prayer that I say regularly, just in covering my family. And one of the things one of my brothers said to me, he was like, it's a good idea that you got it written out. He was like, but try recording yourself actually reading that prayer. And because sometimes I'm gonna be honest with you all, there will be times where you don't feel like praying, or it's a struggle to pray or something like that. So that's something that he adapted to keep in his phone, or to keep on him. He keeps the recording, in his phone. So when he's struggling or he's having a hard time prayer, he can play that prayer back and it does something, to his spirit. And like Kyra was saying, he feels uplifted and he's not, burdened down at that point because he's still covering himself in that moment. Go ahead, Ms. Woodridge.
It's interesting that everybody, each one of the Gloria and Sakara and you and me too, we're not taught to pray. And I think that's good though. I think that's good because when you are taught to pray specifically, like the way your church prays, right, or whoever, then you fall into this trend where you will get bored with that at some point, because it's just like, the Bible said, like, some people just do this repetitious talking, but they don't really mean anything, right, because you have just adopted this group prayer life, right? So for me, it's like prayer is so specific in how you go to God, because you're not going to go to God every day the same way. And I love that because with me, I was like, man, I don't know how to pray. And because my father was very traumatizing, to say the least, where he would be like, everybody about to pray out loud. You know, with us kids, even at home, at church, if he walk up behind you and you weren't praying out loud, he'd be like, "You're gonna get a beating when you get home." So that was very traumatizing for me.
I'm glad he didn't do me like that.
Man, he was pretty traumatizing. So for me, I've learned that even if I'm just quoting the 23rd Psalms, or even if I'm just reading the Psalms or Proverbs and I'm reading it to God, right?
Mhm.
That could be my form of prayer. That could be anybody's form of prayer.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this scripted conversation with God, because He is looking at the purpose and the reason why you're doing this thing. And if it's intentional and earnestly coming from your heart, it doesn't matter how you do it, whether you're screaming, whether you're saying words in your head, you know, or saying it aloud, or writing it down, or however you do it. God is looking at the intent in which you are doing it, not the process in which you're doing it. It's the intention behind it. So, you know, I think we all will adopt our own way of reverencing God and speaking to Him and having your conversation with God. Sometimes will be just like the conversation that you're having, just like we're having a conversation right now. It doesn't have to be this blown over exaggerated kind of thing, like you hear the bishop or the praise leader. Like, I always looked at the praise leader and was like, man, I wish I could pray like that. Maybe that's not for me to do. But the fact that I can get up and just have a casual conversation with God, I don't think He hears me any less, or thinks any less of me than He does of the what is the one girl I used to, Cindy?
Cindy Trim.
What's her name?
Cindy Trim.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she got some amazing prayer books and stuff like that. I could
pray like that, but it's not in me to pray like that.
But the thing is, like I said, like I was saying earlier, and I know we said we finna wrap up. I don't want to get too far gone, but understand, like, prayer is just communication with God. Like you were saying, that's all prayer is. And even if you look at it, look at the book of Psalms and different stuff like that. There are so many prayers through that. I some of those prayers, I'm like, yeah, I don't believe for a second that they were hollering when they were saying this. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Sometimes my prayer, it because there are points, like I said earlier, where you will have time struggling, you know what I'm saying, to pray. Or you will be so, you know what I'm saying, the Bible even talks about it in Romans, where, you know what I'm saying, sometimes we don't know what to pray. And so sometimes my prayer is simply, you know what, Lord, I'm having a hard day today. I need your will to be done. Just guide my steps. Order me in everything that it is that you can. And Lord, just please give me the ability to have the right thing to do, the right thing to say, versus what my actual emotion that I'm struggling with may lead me into. And it's just me being honest with God and me telling God right now, man, like, I know how I'm supposed to respond. I know how I'm supposed to pray. Well, not necessarily pray, but I know how, you know what I'm saying, I'm supposed to try to interact, but I'm struggling right now. I need you to, you know what I'm saying, guide me. And I'm just being honest and vulnerable with God. And in doing that, I'm letting Him know, you know, hey, I ain't got this today. I need your will, because right now my will is just to get folks away from me, because I don't want to say nothing wrong to offend nobody or this, that, and the other. I need some help on the day. And that's just the reality of the situation. Like I said, to me, that's a prayer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm asking God for help.
There have been times, I kid you not, when I was working and going to work in the morning, I had 0 words. I literally screamed in my car like a mad lady all the way to work, because that was the only voice I had was just to scream.
And that's
so I didn't have no words.
That frustration You know what I'm saying? The Bible tells us that, like I said, sometimes we don't know what to pray, and the Holy Spirit gives utterance of what it is that we're praying, you know what I'm saying, praying to God. And like I said, so sometimes all I can say is, God, let your will, you know what I'm saying, be in my life today. God, give me your will, give me your purpose. Because I'm so frustrated, I'm so hurt, I'm so wounded, I'm so in a place of vulnerability that I don't know how, you know what I'm saying, I don't know what I need to pray right now, but the Holy Spirit does. So that's all I can lean on. And that's all we will have to lean on. I don't care who you are. We have those moments. But yeah, as I see, it's 8:00. We've been on for a little bit. I don't want to hold too long. So next week, we will be picking up in chapter 13, going a little bit further into the Exodus, and going through it. Like I said, still please be in prayer for the missus. She is not feeling too hot right now. I'm feeling a little better, definitely. My headache is still a little bit there, but for the most part, it's subsided. I took some stuff and said a prayer and tried to make sure I was here and ready for Bible study. So we're gonna pray out and go from there. Dear Lord, we thank you for this amazing opportunity, oh God. We thank you for the privilege to be in your presence. We thank you for the privilege to seek your word, oh God. We thank you for the honor to seek your word freely, oh God, from free of judgment, free of risk of our lives and things of that nature, oh God. But we also pray for those, oh God, who are risking their lives to seek your word, who are risking their lives just to be able to say thank you, Jesus. We thank you, oh God, for the grace and mercy that you're giving us, the grace and mercy that you're giving them, oh God. We thank you that this word is not just a book that we are reading, but we thank you that this word is living word that is giving us natural and practical examples, oh God, spiritual examples that we can bring here into the natural realm to orchestrate and operate our lives, oh God. We ask that you open doors, oh God, that no man can close, oh God. And Lord Jesus, we ask that you close doors that we don't currently have the strength to close on our own, oh God. Lord, allow this word to be living word in our daily lives, oh God. Allow our prayer lives to impact us, oh God, and everybody around us. Allow this word to guide us, oh God, and give us strength, oh God. Give us discernment, give us wisdom, give us knowledge, give us understanding, oh God. Allow it to be fruitful in every aspect of our lives, oh God, as we seek your face, oh God, and not your hand, oh God. Allow us to experience everything that we are reading, oh God, for the empowerment and impactfulness of the kingdom of Christ, oh God. We ask that as we close up this Bible study, oh God, you allow no backlash or bit of retaliation to fall upon us, oh God, and hold back the hands of the devourer, oh God. Lord Jesus, we ask that you multiply, amplify everything that, oh God, you have in our lives, oh God. Allow us to be great doers of this word, Lord. Lastly, we submit and sacrifice our will unto you, our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our finances, our resources. And we ask that you take them, amplify them, multiply them, oh God. Allow us to have the greatest yield, oh God, that you would get out of us, oh God. For your glory's sake, we pray all these things and believe them and know them to be true. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I hope y'all had a great evening. I enjoyed you all. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Again, we'll be picking up in chapter 13, 6:30, same time. Love you all. Have a great week.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Have a good week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
How do I stop that?
Recording stopped.
By Facebook, social media. Am I doing? Oh, I did that wrong.